for the Peel District School Board, epilepsy ambassador of Peel, family consultant, community advocate, and host/producer of A Voice for All on Rogers TV Peel. In addition, Jamila is a founder of Miss Jams and Empower Me Fitness and Education. Welcome, Jamila.
Hello, everybody. Can you see me? Am I good?
You're very good.
Oh, okay, great. I'm so honored to be back with Scholar's Choice and doing my second webinar. And if those of you who had the pleasure of joining me the first time, I do hope you enjoy the second webinar that I'm doing this evening. So as Patty said, tonight's discussion is about compassion fatigue and burnout. And I just want to put it out there initially that I am not a clinician. I am not a professional when it comes to, assessing and diagnosing compassion fatigue and burnout, but I'm speaking honestly, like I said in my title, because I have been through compassion fatigue and I have been through burnout, and I felt that this is definitely a topic that parents and frontline staff and teachers can identify with. So I do hope you enjoyed tonight's webinar, and at any point if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to Patty. And following the webinar, there will be a PowerPoint that I will try to go through in between the presentation, and it will be available after the presentation for your pleasure. So let's get started. Okay, so tonight's discussion will include the role of being a healthcare professional. And like I said, we're going to be focusing on compassion fatigue. And hopefully with tonight's discussion, I'm going to help you regain your love for your job. I know that is a big task, but hopefully I'll be able to just give you maybe that bit of enthusiasm or that bit of motivation you need to go about your job tomorrow, whatever your duty may be. And with the topic of burnout, I'm going to attempt to help you extinguish your emotional fire. So with the discussion that we're having tonight, we're going to talk about certain scenarios. I do encourage you to have a pen handy. You can make some notes. I'm going to do a bit of reflective pieces with you as well, and just to get you thinking and get you connecting with the presentation tonight. Okay. So I'm going to try to go to my slide here. Can you see the slideshow that I have up right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is basically in this picture here. This is the strategies I do not want you to use. Okay, we call this the stress reduction kit. Please, whatever you do, do not bang your head here. Do not feel that when you encounter life's difficult moments, especially as an educator or a nurse or a frontline staff who are dealing with individuals who may have mental health or developmental disabilities, feel that the only way to relieve your stress is by banging your head here. That is definitely not what I want you to feel is the only solution. But like I said with tonight's discussion, I hope that we're able to find some different techniques to deal with stress and compassion fatigue. So plain and simple, what is compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue has been described as the cost of caring. Basically, it's a gradual lessening of compassion. You're in a profession where you have to give your all. Every day, day in, day out, people are relying on you to be their source of motivation, to be their cheerleaders, to be their counselors, to help them if they're feeling ill, relieve them of any pains. That is a really big job that a lot of us have been, blessed or assigned to do. And at some points, there are days where we do experience a bit of compassion fatigue, where we're like, okay, how much of this can I really do? Do I really care about my job? Am I fit and qualified to do what I'm doing? Which brings me into my next slide of symptoms of compassion fatigue. Okay, now these are not, I'm not saying that everyone experiences these symptoms, or these are the, written in stone symptoms of excessive, compassion fatigue. These are just a few that I came up with. So there's excessive blaming. There's bottled up emotion. Some people tend to feel isolated from others. For some people, their way of dealing with compassion fatigue when they're not able to emotionally identify what is going on is they do compulsive behaviors such as overspending, overeating, gambling, and sexual addictions. I admit I am a shopper. When I am feeling pressure, when I am feeling, whoa, what a week I had, I like to go and shop. That is my way of relieving the pressure, the stress that I'm going through, and sometimes the best solution is to actually talk about it. And often some people, they voice excessive complaints, and examples of that would be, oh, I just don't know if I could do this anymore. She keeps whining. They keep asking me to do this. This person just doesn't understand what I'm going through, and they're constantly vocalizing what they are experiencing, and at times they may not even understand themselves. They are just spewing it all out. This is what's inside. This is how I'm feeling, and some people who work with them find it really hard to understand, which brings me now to chronic symptoms of compassion fatigue. There's physical ailments, whether it's stomach problems, there's cramps, there's bloating, loss of appetite, increased appetite. Everybody's body is different. So like I said, I'm stating these things here. I'm stating a few examples, but in no way am I saying that this is exactly what you're experiencing. This is exactly what you're feeling. I'm just giving you a general idea of what some of the symptoms are. And last but not least, you no longer find the activities pleasurable. For example, maybe you were working with a client who, you used to enjoy singing songs with or playing, chess with. And then one day, you know what, you just had enough. You don't want to sing those songs. You don't want to play chess. You're feeling really burnt out and overwhelmed with what your duties are. And I'm asking you these questions. Have you ever felt any of these symptoms? If so, this does not mean that you no longer care about your work. What it does mean is that you need to become more aware of what's going on. And in my personal experience, when I feel these symptoms, because I'm somebody who's very much aware of, what my body is telling me, and I encourage you to be too, what is my body telling me? How is my body feeling? I'm feeling a little bit off. Why do I feel a little bit off? Really talk to your body and find out, why do I feel like this? And like I said, if you are feeling these symptoms and you're feeling it more at work, does this mean that you are, you no longer want to be a PSW or be a teacher? Or maybe you don't want to parent your children? Absolutely not. It's just your body giving you that red flag saying, hey, Susan, hey, Mike, take it easy. We need to self-reflect. Okay? Patty, can you let me know, can you see me as well and the screen? Patty? No? Okay.
Hi,
So, hi.
Jamila, I can see
Yes?
you, but I cannot see the PowerPoint screen you're currently on. It's still staying at the first PowerPoint screen. And now I can't see the PowerPoint screen.
Sure. Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
How about, can you see the screen now?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. So this is just for those of you who maybe you're listening via, you're watching the webinar, you're getting some points. These are just good points here. You can see as well. Like I said, it says blaming bottle of emotions. You're no longer finding the activities pleasurable. And like I said here in the red, does this mean that you no longer care about your job? Absolutely not. It is a red flag. That is why I put the font in red for you. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide here. The organizational symptoms of compassion fatigue. Okay, so now this is what happens when you are experiencing compassion fatigue and is now coming into the workplace. Everybody now is working on you. This is how it is now kind of spreading to people. So high absenteeism, you're finding a reason not to come to work. You do not want to deal with what is going on. Constant changes in co-work relationships. This is a prime point right here, because you might feel as if, you're experiencing these symptoms, you're experiencing these emotions towards your job, and you're viewing your coworkers as maybe they're not there for you. Maybe they're not understanding what I'm going through. Do I want to, talk to these people? Do I want to socialize with these people? Which leads us to the next point of the inability for the team to work well together. If everybody or one particular person, maybe it's a key player, maybe it's your supervisor, if your supervisor is not feeling what they're doing anymore, they're not connecting with what they're doing anymore, it is going to cause an inability for the teams to work well together. Very key point that I'd like you to highlight there. Desire among staff to break company rules. Hey, John doesn't care about what's going on with our job. Well, then why should we? Why should we care about what's going on? We want John to connect, and John is not connecting with us, which brings me now to outbreaks of aggression amongst the staff. The staff here now they're butting heads, they're not seeing eye to eye, there's lots of confrontation. These types of things really causes people to turn against each other. And when we work in a field of being a professional helper or a frontline staff or an educator, these types of jobs thrive on teamwork. They thrive on teamwork and relationship and understanding and connecting. And if people are not feeling that sense of self and not feeling as if they're connecting with what they are doing anymore, it really brings down the attitude of the management. People are no longer wanting to care about bringing up the company, and staff are feeling that, what's the point? What's going to happen to our organization in the future? What's going to happen to my classroom in the future? What's going to happen with the daycare that I run or the parents that I work with? Is there a point? Should I stop? And I ask you, does this sound like an organization or a job that you want to be in? No, absolutely not. This contributes to the compassion fatigue, that when you're feeling like, I'm just not there anymore, you really lose that zest that you originally had initially when you entered this field. And like I said with this presentation tonight, I really hope that if this is something that you have once experienced, or maybe you're currently experiencing, that I could help you regain that sense of self and maybe start your day fresh tomorrow. Okay? Patty, at any point you could also let me know if you want to add in any questions, if anyone wants me to backtrack on anything I have said.
I haven't got any questions yet, Jamila, but
okay.
If anybody wants to send us questions, you can do so on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to send the questions in, and I will either forward them to Jamila or we'll interrupt and ask them as they come in.
Okay, perfect. So right now you guys could see me, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a little bit of I like to call it a self-reflection activity I want us to all do. Okay. For those of you who do not know, I do work in kindergarten this year. I do have 2 students who are both nonverbal. They both have a developmental disability, and they both rely on me quite heavily for their day-to-day care, their personal care, and just being their voice since they are nonverbal. And there are days that after dealing with, if it's a traumatic situation, perhaps an irate parent, or if one of my students had a medical emergency, I do feel quite drained. So if you do have a piece of paper, I want you to write down as many words as you can to describe how you have felt in an emotionally difficult situation. The reason why I have you doing this is because sometimes when we're in these situations, we really don't know what words to use in the situation. You don't know how to express what you're going through. You might use, words like I feel frustrated, I feel exhausted, I feel tired, but really I encourage you, if you have a pen and you have that piece of paper like I told you to have initially, please start doodling as we're talking right now, as I'm talking to you, and just write down words that you could remember from maybe a very difficult situation that you were in, so that you can have it on a piece of paper, and you can have it as a piece that if you ever find yourself in another difficult situation, out that you could scratch those words out as you go along if you're ever in a difficult situation. So if you see the self-reflection activity on the screen, as I said as I'm talking, please feel free to write down, maybe jot down what that issue was for you once, and remember for the emotions to describe what you're feeling at that point. And this is something I want you to keep during the duration of the webinar this evening. So Patty, can you confirm with me if you can see the self-reflection activity?
Yes, I can. We lost you for a few minutes.
Okay. Oh, yes, that wasn't on my part. Pardon me?
The streaming of your voice isn't coming through very clearly.
Okay. Can you hear it loud and clear now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So let's go on to our next slide here. And as I said, these slides will be available for your use after the presentation. So you're experiencing a bit of compassion fatigue. Like this woman on the screen here, you may have that face. Like I said, in kindergarten, there are days I have that face. You're working with 30 children who all want your attention, or some of them might be working with 30 adults, patients in a hospital. Maybe you might be working with a relative that you were caring for, and you were just feeling, whoa, how much more of me can I give? How much more love can I put out there? And then you find yourself battling, because that happened to me before, who should I care about right now? This is how I feel. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling like I just want to quit. But then you have this position of where you have to care for somebody else, and it's like, oh my goodness, who is the more important person here? Is it me, or is it the person that I'm caring for? And which brings me to my next slide. Does that make you a bad person? No, it makes you human. We work in a field where, especially if you, like I said, you're a teacher, you're a nurse, you're a PSW, a DSW, social worker who works for Children's Aid, that you will encounter difficult situations. You will encounter emotional, trying scenarios where you just feel like, I don't know how much more of myself I could give. And if you're exhausted and you're ready to sit down and say, no more, I need to take a leave of absence, I need to take a vacation, does that make you a bad person because you're saying no? Like I said, no, it makes you human, because a person who works in this field, they know when to stop. They know when to say, you know what, I need to break to take care of me right now, because if you do not take care of yourself, how will you be able to take care of others? Some of the clients that I work with, especially the parents, I encourage parents, go have a night out, have a girls' night, have a guys' night, go have a couple of days away from your child if you can, or from your job if you can. If there's someone who can cover for you, if there's someone who can watch your child, I encourage you to take that time off, because if you do not take time to rejuvenate, you will find yourself moving on to being burnt out, which brings me on to my next topic of discussion, which will be burnout. Now, at any point, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to send them over. We can always cover them during this webinar. And as I said before, these slides will be available for your use after the presentation is complete. Okay. So let's talk about compassion fatigue versus burnout. Okay, what is the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout? Compassion fatigue is, like I said, that gradual lessening of compassion. Work in a field where you have to give your all and you're just not finding that you have that smile. Maybe your smile used to be really bright once upon a time. Maybe before you felt that you come in and you greet people with a really bubbly attitude, and as the days go on, you're a little bit, you're not as social, you're a little bit more withdrawn, you're experiencing some of those symptoms that we talked about with compassion fatigue. But now we're going to talk about burnout. And burnout is a term that a lot of people could relate to. And oftentimes, like I said, people aren't sure of, are they experiencing compassion fatigue or are they experiencing burnout. And burnout is a term that is used to describe the physical and emotional exhaustion that workers can experience when they have low job satisfaction. And that comes to when you're at work and your supervisor is not saying, hey, good job, I liked how you dealt with that situation today. Or maybe your coworkers aren't supporting you and having your back and telling you, hey, I like the way you came up with this idea, or maybe, do you want to try this? Like when we work in the field of social services or work in the field of customer service, when we give ourselves to the customer or to the client, we need a little love for ourselves. Everybody needs a little love for themselves. We all need a little bit of praise. We all need a high five. We all need a pat on the back. It helps us keep going, and it's really important to know the difference between, am I experiencing compassion fatigue or am I burnt out? And I came up with the analogy today with a coworker after work, and I was like, imagine that when we first start, we are a match, and we are just a freshly lit match, and our flame is glowing ever so brightly, and slowly it starts to trickle and trickle and trickle and trickle. That's you, the match in your workplace. Now, I want you to imagine that your workplace is a forest. It's a very dry forest, maybe in California. That's how dry your forest is. And imagine that you just throw yourself into that forest of your coworkers who are also experiencing a burnout. Maybe there's some people experiencing some compassion fatigue. What do you get when you throw a match into a forest? You have a forest fire. And this is why when employers, especially the supervisors, if you are a supervisor who's tuning in and you recognize that your staff are burnt out, they are not as jolly as they used to be, they're not as supportive and working as a team as they used to be, it is imperative that you call a meeting. You call a meeting and you say, listen team, I'm realizing that the flame that we once lit is not there. What can I do as a supervisor to assist you, to make you feel like yourself again? And this is also your opportunity as the staff who may be feeling this to go, you know what, this is how I'm feeling right now. I need to vocalize it. I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling that way. I'm feeling overwhelmed, because this goes back to being a human. We need to admit when we are tired. It is not serving anybody. It's not benefiting anybody when we keep that information to ourselves. It's hindering other people. It's hindering ourselves. It's hindering our family, the people that we care for. So please, I really encourage you, as I'm talking about burnout and I'm talking about compassion fatigue, if this is something that you feel that maybe you're currently experiencing, tonight I really hope we could identify those emotions and we could talk about it, and we could deal with it and get you back where you need to be. Because we're in a world and a society where if we are not 100% ourselves, businesses will struggle, families will struggle if we are not feeling 100% and whole.
Jamila?
Okay? Yes.
I have a question.
Perfect.
How do you talk to the people involved, bringing up your feelings and your fatigue?
How do I talk to the people I'm involved? Well, I'm a very chatty person. So I'm going to use two scenarios here. Once upon a time when I was not a very chatty person, I wasn't an outspoken person, it was very difficult for me to vocalize with my colleagues, this is how I feel. Because I felt that if I admitted that I was tired, if I admitted that this is how I felt about them, that it would turn people against me. And that was the big worry for me, was how people could view me. So I waited until I was able to, maybe have a staff meeting. A few times when I was in those scenarios, we'd have a staff meeting. And I explained to one of my supervisors once, can we have like a box, a very anonymous box. So we could write down our emotions and we could talk about it as a group. It is not easy for everybody to talk publicly about defeat. That's how some people view it. Defeat, like, oh my gosh, I feel like this. I can't let my team know this. They're not going to think I'm a team player. If that is you, then you write it anonymously and you say, listen, let's all have a little staff meeting. Let's all talk about our emotions and get it out like that. But if you are someone who is comfortable expressing yourself, the best solution, I think, is to use an iMessage. This takes me back to like my high school counseling class, but really use an iMessage and do not be afraid to express yourself. It's how you express yourself is what's important. You don't come into a meeting and go, listen, I hate you, and I hate you. I'm tired of this place, I'm sick of this place, you make me feel like this. No, no, no. You come in and you go, guys, I'm not feeling like myself. I love to work here, but lately I feel like I have been blank. I am doing this, I am doing that. And together I hope I'm able to get back to doing this and doing that. It's really how you deliver the message, because I think if you deliver the message abruptly and aggressively, people are going to see past the fact that you might be burnt out, and they just might think that you're not a team player and you're not right for this job and you just need to quit or you need to retire. So to answer your question, I really want to focus on how you deliver that message. Deliver it in a peaceful manner, maybe write it down, confide in somebody who you trust. For me, the person I was able to confide into when I was younger was my mother. My mother got a share of my vent sessions, and I said this in my last webinar that sometimes it's very difficult for us to talk about what we do for privacy reasons, but we sometimes do need to talk. It's what you say, it's how you say it, and I would hope through talking to someone who you trust and maybe writing it down. That's what I'm saying. During this webinar, write these points down, that you're able to find some relief, and then create a bit of a game plan on how you could deliver your message to your colleagues.
Okay, I have another good question here, Jamila.
Sure.
I'm a new teacher, and I'm in a school where I experience things on a daily basis that I never encountered in my life until now. As a new teacher, I did not expect to go home and cry about the young child that lost a parent to jail or violence, the child who comes to school hungry, and the child who only wants someone to listen and care. How do I get over this?
How do you get over this? First off, I'm giving you a hug. Can you feel the hug I'm giving you? Many times I have gone home. Many times I have gone home, especially as a first-year teacher, because as some people say, we don't have that thick skin, and you're coming into this new world of seeing things and hearing things that we have never experienced. I'm sure growing up, perhaps you have never experienced coming to school without a lunch. You've never experienced a parent going to jail. And we never fathom that the kids that we work with today, that they're experiencing those things. And you wouldn't be surprised the amount of stories I hear at school. I'm going to be honest. Like I said, this is a very honest discussion, and say that this is not going to be the first time you're going to be experiencing these emotions. And if you need to go home and cry, then I encourage you to go home and cry. You need to let it out. Absolutely need to let it out, because crying is healthy. Crying is healing. Crying is not an example of weakness. It's not an example of defeat. It's not an example that you're not capable of doing your job. You are healing. You are releasing and journaling. I used to write, this is how I feel. Tomorrow, this is how I'm going to take on the day. I had a student who, two students actually, one whose parents I unfortunately had to make a CAS call for. That was the hardest thing for me, the absolute hardest thing for me, because I felt like I was deceiving the parents. I don't know if anyone else has felt this way, but I felt like I was deceiving the parent, even though I knew that this was the right thing to do, that this child needed this support. I felt like, oh my God, what about if I'm wrong? What about if I'm assuming things? And working in this field, we will see that. Again, if you have a principal at your school who you feel that you can speak openly to, talk to your principal and say, listen, I'm a first-year student. Tell me, how did you go through this? How did you go through, making your first CAS call? Or how did you go through seeing a child come to school without a lunch? Even talking to senior teachers in the school. And like I said, it goes back to how you talk to those people. You're not coming to school saying, oh my God, I can't believe kids don't eat. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this child's in jail, because it's going to happen. They have seen it. But you need to ask them, how do you see this? Take it in and go about your day. Okay, I'm not asking people to be cold-hearted and go, whoa, people get arrested all the time, but I want you to realize and accept that given that you've been assigned a very special task of being a teacher, and there's going to be days where you see days of triumph of your children, your students spelling their first word, tying their shoelace, socializing with their peers, and on the flip side, there's going to be days where there's CAS situations, parents who are sending their children to school with inadequate lunches, not properly dressed, and when you see those things, you're going to develop that attitude that, you know what, I'm going to be an advocate almost. Maybe if I keep seeing that same child coming to school like this, maybe I could talk to the parent. Maybe I could educate the class who could then educate their parents. It's a journey. It is a journey. And I do hope that you do not continue to experience these emotions, that there will be those rough days, but there's also those days that you can come home and praise yourself for the lives you've touched and the minds you've inspired, because that is what you've been blessed to do. So I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. It is definitely hard, but please, like I said, I encourage you to write these things down. And maybe if there's a particular situation that really impacted you today, write down what that situation was, and then make a little blueprint, like a little plan for yourself, and say, today I saw a child do this. I felt this way. Tomorrow I will be strong, I will be confident, and I will know that although I may not be able to change this child's home situation, I can inspire their minds. And that is what my gift is, that is what my talent is. And even just reminding yourself of what you've been, assigned to do, that makes you feel better sometimes about the situation, even though it's not the peachiest. Okay? Is that good?
That was great. Thanks, Jamila.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the 411 on burnout. Okay. If you have ever experienced burnout, I want you to write in the comment box, I have experienced burnout. Okay. Let's be honest here. Let's admit that we know we've experienced burnout. Everybody's experienced burnout. And like I said, we are human. So according to Dr. Ballard, a lot of burnout really has to do with experiencing chronic stress, okay? In those situations, if you in places you have available to address, that goes back to the previous question, the person who just sent this question, thank you for sending it again. We don't know what to do. Okay, we want to be almost like the Mother Teresa and be able to feed all of our students, dress all of our students, shield our children from what they witness at home. And unfortunately, we cannot do that. So sometimes admitting that I cannot do that, I cannot fix everything, I cannot change everything, that is the number one thing when we're experiencing burnout, is to admit, hey, I cannot fix every situation, but hopefully through self-reflection, through talking about it, through connecting with people, joining webinars like this, that we could go, you know what, I know what burnout is, I know what I need to do, and I'm going to be able to effectively deal with the burnout. Okay? Now, for those of you who have not experienced burnout, but maybe you have and you do not know what the symptoms are of burnout, let's go over Dr. Ballard's top 10 signs you may be experiencing burnout. Okay, I'm going to go back to that slide there for you guys so you can see it. Okay, number 1, exhaustion. Number 2, lack of motivation. Number 3, frustration. Other negative emotions. 4, cognitive problems. 5, slipping job performance. 6, interpersonal problems at home and at work. Number 7, not taking care of yourself. Number 8, being preoccupied with work when you're not at work. Number 9, generally decreased satisfaction. And number 10, health problems. I'm going to go over some of my top signs of burnout because like I said, I can admit I've experienced burnout. I know what burnout is about. And maybe through that list that I have up for you guys might be able to go, yes, I too have experienced some of that burnout. So for me, this is some of my top ones. Exhaustion. Number 1 for me, exhaustion, especially when you are working in an event field where you constantly be checking in with people, connecting with people, whether it's students, whether it's clients, customer service, your family. Exhaustion is the number 1 thing you are going to experience when experiencing burnout. Another one I find that I'm guilty of, and I guess I can admit it, being preoccupied with work when I'm not at work. God bless my fiance. Because there's times when I'm at home and it's like 11:30 and I'm going, oh my goodness, I have to work on this student's IEP and this IEP goal's not being addressed, and I'm trying to explain to his mom that the benefits of him doing speech and language, and she's not getting it, and he has to stop me and go, hi, let me remind you, we're not at work, we are at home. And sometimes when he gives me the reality check and tells me you need to stop, take a time out, that's what I need. Because I'm so preoccupied with work. And for some people, they might feel that being preoccupied with work is a sign of, I'm a hard worker. And sometimes it is, but you'd be surprised, it's also a sign of being burnt out. Number 7, not taking care of yourself. Remember that time when you used to pack a lunch every single day, a nice healthy lunch? You made sure you had your bottle of water, a nice salad. You went to the gym after work, you socialized with friends, you sang on the way to work in the car, and all of a sudden you're not doing those things anymore, you're not taking care of yourself. My friends, that might be a sign that you might be experiencing burnout. And like I said, if we're not taking care of ourselves, how are we possibly able to take care of others? Tell me, explain to me, how are we able to do that if we are not rejuvenating ourselves, if we are not loving ourselves, if we're not doing things to make ourselves feel good, or as Pharrell says, be happy. If we're not doing that, how are we possibly going to help other people feel good, feel happy, feel strengthened, feel empowered? We're not going to be able to do that. So look at this list here of the top 10 signs. These are just a few, because I'm sure the list goes up to like 100, but these are the top 10 signs. If you feel that you are experiencing any of these symptoms, I want you to write them down on that notepad next to you. I want you to print out these PowerPoints after this presentation and highlight them, and I want you to look at these things and go, this is how I'm feeling now, but I'm going to work towards not feeling this way. I'm going to work towards not slipping on my job performance. I'm going to work on my health problems. Maybe my breathing is not as strong as it used to be. Maybe I'm having headaches. How can I stop those headaches from coming? Maybe I'm negative at work. I'm the Debbie Downer of the office. I'm the Debbie Downer of the staff room. Oh, I know a few Debbie Downers, to be honest, but maybe you are that person who's lacking that motivation. How can I get that motivation back? How can I feel good again? Okay? Now, I'm going to show you guys a couple of images, and I want you to show me which picture best describes how you look when you're burnt out. Are you this person? The person who's half peaceful, the birds are chirping, I'm drinking my coffee? Or are you the person who's stressing out, coffee spilling, heads bulging, eyes are popping out of your head? Perhaps this visual, you are out of order. Your mind's done. You're fried. You cannot function. People are asking you to do things. They're reminding you to do things. And you're slipping. This goes back to your job performance is slipping. You are not mentally there at work. Sometimes at school, I like to joke around with the secretary and write my name on the absent board of the teachers who are absent today. And she goes, why are you writing your name on the absent board? You are here today. I go, no. Physically, I am here, but mentally, I am out of order. I am not here today. I am tired. Are you that person? Or maybe this is you, and this is many of us. multitaskers. We have our boss, we have our children, we have our spouse, we have dinner to cook, we have, you know, prescriptions to fill for our children who might be sick. We have phone calls to return. So much going around that we are feeling absolutely frazzled. And in this picture, I like to know that it is a woman, but let's just say men could be here too, okay? Men have the pressure of work. Men have the pressure of home. Everyone's stress is different, but I do want to note that a lot of time when we talk about compassion fatigue and we talk about burnout, people instantly think of women. And fellas, if you are listening to this webinar tonight, you too may be experiencing burnout. This just might be you in this image over here. So if you are any of these pictures, you know, do not be ashamed to admit that, yes, this is how I feel. But like I said, with tonight's discussion, I would hope that we could go from this picture to being in here. How can I go from being on empty and bringing my tank back to full? Okay? On the left, you have someone whose head is, you know, their head's hurting them, they're tired, they're on E, they're just coming to work, and work is just a hate, it's no longer a passion. But on the right here, this is one of my old students. You know, sometimes we just have to be a little bit silly at work. We take funny pictures, we smile, little things like that, taking, you know, really funny selfies. It brings that joy back to work. It makes us remember sometimes why we got into this field, why we may feel, you know, the joy we experience from working with these people, and gets us back on track. And that is the goal of tonight, is to help you get back on track. Okay? Before we get to our next self-reflection activity, Patty, is there any questions?
There's lots of questions, Jamila.
Okay, that's good.
How do I use these references for compassion fatigue / burnout for the sole caregiver in the home instead of the workplace?
Okay, so this person wants to know how they could bring these examples to home?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a very good question. I was hoping somebody would be asking that. As mothers, as even older, you know, fathers, older siblings, we experience compassion fatigue. I'll be completely honest. On a side note, a couple of days ago, my fiance was sick, and I was like, it's just a man cold. You know, my compassion fatigue went out. It wasn't here. I was not feeling empathy for him. But in a situation like that, if you have a spouse who is ill, who has a relative, a parent, an elderly parent, a child with a disability, step one is admitting that you are tired. I just want to take a second from that question to just bring up the example of the mother from British Columbia who committed murder-suicide 2 weeks ago, I believe. She was exhausted. She was admitting she was exhausted. She was putting it on Facebook. She was talking to the general public, to the government, and saying, listen, this is how I'm feeling. It's far too much for me to be raising a child with a significant disability. And the first step she did was admitting compassion fatigue. If there is a relative, there's a coworker, or not coworker, another family member that you could connect with, I really, really encourage you to talk to that person and say, listen, I am tired. This is how I feel. How can I, you know, how can we work together? Maybe we could take shifts. Maybe we could have shared responsibility, because we cannot take everything on our own. But in some situations, if we do not have a large family who we could depend on to give us that support, there are community organizations who we can turn to. Thankfully, we have Scholars Choice, who provides a wealth of information for you guys and webinars for you guys to learn from. But educate yourself. Talk to people within your community. Find support groups. Find people who you could, you know, share your stories. Pain shared. This is what I'm going through. And through that, you could figure out solutions that could apply to your particular scenario. But I do understand how much harder it is to walk away from an issue at work compared to walking away from an issue at home. You can't leave your kids by themselves to feed themselves. You cannot leave your elderly relative to care for themselves. Unfortunately, it is us sometimes. So like I said, step one, admitting you are exhausted, admitting you need support. looking for that support system and finding those resources. Do not be ashamed to not admit that you need help, because we do need help. Do not be ashamed to say, listen, I can't take mom to her appointment tonight. It is too much for me. I cannot take dad to his appointment tonight. I can't do it. Somebody else needs to do it. Because if we're not admitting that this is how we're feeling, then it's going to, we'll have two situations. Somebody needs help and ourselves needs the help. And you're facing that battle of who is going to support first. I really encourage you, the person who asked this question, to seek support within your family, and take time out for yourself. If you need time out, you take that time out and go for breaks. You go out for dinner. You do something to rejuvenate yourself so that you're whole again to deal with the compassionate situation in your family.
I have another one that's been asked by a number of people, Mila, and it's, how do we get our principal or supervisor to have an open conversation, open, honest conversation about this topic? Keep in mind that they can be difficult with their ideas and not open to hearing that you're suffering from burnout. And how do I not take that as a sign of weakness?
Okay, first off, you are not weak. Remind yourself that. Keep that yourself in mind. Write it on a sticky note. I am not weak. I am not, defeated. I am strong. I am capable. And I am admitting that I need help, which shows a sign of strength. You have principals. We've all had principals. We've all had supervisors that are either supportive, who we could just barge into their office and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling. And then you have other principals who are just like, you cannot talk to them. In a scenario like that, sometimes it takes a team approach versus a solo approach. If you have other colleagues who are facing this type of situation, then what I would recommend doing it, and fortunately I've worked in schools where they have done this, they have brought webinars or discussions like that to their staff meeting. So they might put it on the agenda and go, can we allocate 20 minutes tonight to talk about how we could talk about compassion fatigue and talk about burnout, and maybe bringing in an expert, maybe bringing in someone who could volunteer 30 minutes of their time to educate your principal, because sometimes people who are afraid to talk about it, people who do not know how to answer the questions, are either A, in denial that they themselves have experienced this, or B, they have no understanding of this whatsoever, and maybe they need you to step up and go, listen, we need to educate people. Like I said, the PowerPoints are here. Bring these to your staff. Bring them to your staff room. Bring it to your next staff meeting and use it as a resource to get the conversation going. It helps, and if the situation is so difficult that you cannot contact your principal, I suggest contacting your union. Talking to your union and talking to the union rep and saying, listen, what resources are available? I know some school boards have counseling services. Maybe that's a step you can take. Maybe someone from the union could come in and, like I said, host a discussion for the principal, for the rest of the staff. And the key point that you need to let your principal or your vice principal, whoever it is, understand is that if we are not 100%, if we're not 100% up here and 100% in here, then these children are the ones who are going to suffer. Our students are going to be the ones to suffer. Our students are going to be the ones who are feeling the brunt of our stress. There's going to be a high turnover rate that come the end of the year. You're going to have people doing voluntary transfers. You might have people who are doing early retirement, and state those cons to your principal that if we do not talk about this now, these are some of the scenarios that can happen. So please, create a forum where we as a staff can feel comfortable talking to you. And I hope that through doing that, your principal could open up their eyes and say, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, that if we do not, help my staff, then 400 plus students are the ones who are ultimately going to be the ones who are harmed. Okay, Patty?
Yeah, I have another one here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with burnout when it's constant back and forth on giving your all 1 minute and wanting to give up? There are no resources for the next 4 months, and I go to work daily wondering what kind of day I will be walking into, always thinking of work and how I can help these children.
Okay. Another really good question. especially when there's no did this person say there was no resources?
No resources for the next 4 months.
No resources for the next 4 months. To the individual who asked this question, if you could just clarify for me the types of resources that are not available. Is it that there's not a union, or is there not a supervisor? Like, if you could just give me a little bit more clarification on the lack of resources, perhaps I could suggest some resources that could be of use to you. Okay, can we answer another question?
One-on-one support. She answered already.
Okay, she did? Okay.
Yeah, it's one-on-one support.
One-on-one support for them or for the child? For them?
Child.
For the child. Okay, we could do a whole separate webinar on this. Unfortunately, I hate to use the word unfortunately, but it is true. When we work one-on-one with a child and there's no resources, do you know who the main resource is? Us. We are the resource. I have been in situations where there are no resources for my students or my clients, and I ultimately become the physiotherapist, the occupational therapist, the speech and language pathologist, the behavior therapist, everything that ends in therapist I have become. And what we need to start doing is creating our own resources, okay? So if you are feeling burned out and you're like, what do I do? How do I create these things? This is when we find forums like Scholar's Choice, find forums on Twitter, find other people who we can connect with, people outside people. People, you'd be amazed. I have met so many fantastic people from other school boards, from outside the country, who have an open perspective, who are not in my situation, so they can have a really open mind, and talk to them about what resources I could create. Maybe they have some resources they could pass along to you. Maybe I might have some resources I could pass along to you, but I understand and I could connect and identify with you when you say you're coming home and you're like, what's going to happen tomorrow? And not in a joyful way, like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, what's going to happen tomorrow? When you feel that way, like I said, it's your student who's going to be feeling it too, because you're feeling defeated. And when you're working on a one-to-one relationship with someone, the last thing you need to feel is defeat. So please, because like I said, we have not that much time. Time is running out shortly. Patty, I'm sure at the end of the discussion, will send out my contact information. If you'd like to contact me personally, because for a question like that, I don't want to rush it too much, but at the same time, I really encourage you to contact me, and I can discuss with you one-on-one resources, some solutions that I've gone through, and we can talk more in depth about what you're experiencing with your student.
Thanks, Jamila.
Okay. Was there another question, or are we moving on?
You can move on. I can let you finish, and then if we have time for more at the end, I will ask them then.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So let's go on to self-reflection activity. I hope you guys are enjoying these self-reflection activities. Sometimes we just need a little reminder about what, what we're experiencing, and little tips, little tidbits that help us. So Patty, please tell me if you could see me or the slideshow right now.
I can see both.
Oh, wow.
What screen are we supposed to be on?
We're on self-reflection activity number 2 with the 6 habits of happiness.
No, I don't see that.
Okay.
Shows us beyond 17.
Tell me if you see it now.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So get your pens out for self-reflection activity number 2, and this is the 6 habits of happiness worth cultivating. I know it's, there's always the top 10, the top 6, and we feel that sometimes when we read these things, we're like, I totally know this. Like, why am I being reminded of something so simple? But we actually do need these reminders sometimes. So, number 1, let's start with paying attention. Studies show that mindful people have stronger immune systems and are less likely to be hostile or anxious. So this goes back to being self-aware. You are mindful of how you are feeling. You are mindful of what your body is going through. I'm experiencing back pain. My stomach is in knots. I'm stressed. I'm tired. Being aware of how you're feeling and paying attention is a great stepping stone into how you can deal with feeling less anxious and less hostile. Keeping friends close. Social connections are the key to happiness. And I like to add in front of social connections, healthy social connections. I'm not talking about your friends who want to go out on Friday night and, you know, engage in whatever kind of activities that might be a hindrance to you. I'm talking about friends who you could connect with, who you could speak to, and they could give you positive feedback, positive, you know, words of advice, and be a good listening ear. As I said, research indicates it's quality more than quantity. Make time for those closest to you. Sometimes we need to step away from work. We need to step away from the situation that we're dealing with and connect ourselves with people who are, you know, healthy and positive, and could just take us away emotionally, mentally from what we're going with, and just do something fun. Go bowling, go swimming, go for a walk. Little things like that, really, with the right people, it just brings you back, you know, and that's why they say, you know, everyone's working for the weekend. It's what you do on the weekend. If you're doing something on the weekend making you feel rejuvenated and you're like, okay, Monday, I'm ready to take you on, that's the kind of thing that we need to be doing with the right people to help us, you know, continue, like I said, on that pathway to happiness. Next one, and I love this, giving thanks. I want to just emphasize here for giving thanks that you do not need to be a religious person to be giving thanks. You do not need to be, you know, a believer or whatever it may be, but it's just taking time to give thanks. I try on a daily basis to give thanks before I go to bed and to give thanks in the morning when I wake up, and even during the day, and for little things. Today, my students, I was sick 2 days last week, and my students were angels today. I said, thank you, teacher gods, that my students were perfect today. They were calm, they were listening, they were working with each other, the energy was flowing. Thank you for that. Or I might say thank you for, you know, having colleagues who, you know, I could turn to, I could talk to. Thank you for the parent who took time to follow the IEP goals I sent home. Thank you to my principal. Thank you to my spouse and my friends who listen to me. Sometimes I vent. Sometimes I go on a tyrant of what's going on. Thank you to those people. So please, guys, I encourage you to take time to give thanks, because research reveals the enormous power of simply counting our blessings. Regular expressions of gratitude promote optimism, better health, and greater satisfaction with life. When we say thank you, we feel awesome. Flat out, you feel awesome. Because sometimes when you say thank you to somebody, not only are you making yourself feel awesome, but you're saying that person's feeling awesome in return, that someone recognized, you know, that they did something that made them feel great. So I encourage you to say thank you, and I encourage people to say thank you to others, so that equally everybody's feeling great. Okay? Which brings me to dropping grudges. When we work in situations, especially when it includes compassion fatigue and burnout, maybe there was that coworker who you felt didn't have your back. Maybe there was that teacher who you felt did not give you a helping hand or did not support you. Rather than hold that grudge until June, let it go. Let it go. And the reason why I kind of started singing Let It Go is because of Frozen. When you work in kindergarten, those kids sing Let It Go all the time. So I'm encouraging you to listen to the song Frozen and let it go. Do not let that toxic feeling stay on you. Do not let it hinder your day. Do not let it make you, you know, not want to go to work tomorrow, not go to the staff social, not go to the staff meeting, not sit in the staff room with your friends, but really let it go, move on, and pay attention. Like I said, going back, pay attention to how you felt when you were holding that grudge and how you feel when you let it go. Next point, get moving. Regular exercise increases self-esteem, reduces anxiety and stress, and may well be the most effective instant happiness booster of all. I'm not saying that we all need to go join a Zumba class and get on the treadmill 5 days a week and be on it for an hour at a time. Going for a simple walk. You know, spring is finally here. Go out for a walk, sitting on your terrace, taking in, you know, just peace and quiet. You know, maybe joining a sports league that you've never done before. Doing something that's out of the norm, that's going to make you feel good, get you moving, get that blood flowing, and let you for, you know, a few minutes forget about what stress you may be experiencing. Because when you do those activities, what happens when you're exercising and you're socializing? You're increasing your serotonin, and we all need serotonin to keep us going, keep us moving. And my last point here for the top 6 habits of happiness is practicing kindness. Being kind to others makes us feel good. Okay, that is the key thing, making us feel good when we're making others feel good. And a small example of this would be if you're, for example, because I realize we do have a lot of teachers this evening, if you are a teacher or a teaching assistant or, you know, a lunchroom supervisor, anyone who's working with someone, and you realize that maybe your colleague is looking a little bit down, maybe the next day you might bring them a cup of tea. Maybe you might, you know, tell them, hey, I'm going to watch your students for a few minutes. How about you go for a break? You know, showing them that you care, showing them that you are there for them. We feel good when we help others feel good. It's a win-win situation. We're taking time to make them feel good. We're taking time for ourselves to feel good, and we all need that, because when we're taking time to practice kindness, to drop grudges, to get moving, to give thanks, to pay attention to how we're feeling, and to connect with healthy people who are going to help us feel good, those little things are ultimately relieving us of burning out, relieving us of feeling compassion, fatigue, and helping us remember why we love what we do. There's days, like I said, I am so tired. I am so incredibly tired, and it takes maybe my students to say, Jaja, I missed you. Or my coworkers to go, oh my goodness, I heard you guys, you were sick last week. I really missed you last week. I hope everything is well. For me to remember, this is why I'm here, to work with people, to inspire minds, to inspire spirits, to help the future of tomorrow. Those things is what we need to remind us to extinguish the burnout, to get rid of the fatigue and increase the compassion. I hope that these 6 habits, you could add to those habits. You can make it 12 habits, 20 habits of, you know, happiness, and spread that to other people, because like I said, ultimately when we're helping others, we're helping ourselves. Okay? And this is my favorite slide here. Just going to pause the surface in here. Okay. So for this next slide here, all of us have our man crush or our woman crush or whoever it may be. And I thought, why not pick one of the best people in the world of Hollywood to help us get back on track and to help us feel that we can do it. It's almost June, you know, it's almost the end of the week. We can keep going. We can keep trucking along. Who better than this fine gentleman to help us realize what we're doing? Can you see my screen here?
We can now.
All right. Ryan Gosling knows best, people. Hey, girl or guy, you're strong. Keep it going. Keep that in mind. Keep Ryan. Keep Angelina. Keep your children. Maybe you want to replace this picture of your family, of your students, of your spouse, and just remember them being your cheerleader to say, you are strong. Keep it going. Do not give up. Do not let the dark cloud of compassion, fatigue, or burnout take over your mind, take over your body, take over your soul. Ultimately, be the bigger person here. And like I said, it goes back to recognizing I am tired. I'm you know, frizzled out. You know, what can I do to help myself get back? Do not face defeat of admitting that, you know, maybe I'm not capable of doing my job, because we are capable. You got into this field for a reason. Whoever hired you because they know you're capable of it. And sometimes we need a reminder or a webinar like this or a discussion like this to remember it. So I really, 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 really hope that through this discussion this evening that you were able to remember what makes you awesome, what makes you great, why you're in what you're doing, the people who appreciate what you're doing, the students that you're inspiring, the parents who are, you know, maybe they do a really bad job of saying thank you, but they are thankful. They are thankful for what you're doing for their children. They're thankful for the difference that you're making. And, you know, I would hope that for those of you who are teachers, June is almost here, but to applaud yourself for what you do day in, day out, and remember the difference that you are making, and to connect yourself with the right people and the right teachers, and find that voice to talk to your principal, to talk to your administrators, and get that support if you need it. Before we go to the next set of questions, I just want to remind you that if you have any additional questions, you can always feel free to connect with me on Twitter or on my Facebook for my Jam fan page. I respond to all questions and emails. There was tons of people who sent me emails last time, and I made it my duty to respond to all of them. So please do not hesitate to email me. I will do the best I can to support you in any way I could. And I thank you for taking time this evening to join my webinar. I hope you were able to leave with something and leave feeling empowered. And like I said, remember what makes you great. Remember what makes you you. And if you are ever experiencing compassion fatigue, and if you're ever feeling a little bit burnt out, take out your fire extinguisher. Eliminate that burnout. Get rid of that dark cloud of compassion fatigue, and do what you need to do to get yourself back on track. Okay?
So we do have a couple questions still outstanding. As a parent, how do we help when we see a child's teacher has signs of burnout? How do we help that teacher as a parent?
Well, you know what? First off, to the parent who asked that question, thank you. Thank you. Because there are some people, unfortunately, in the community who believe that we are just these energizer bunnies who keep going and going and going, and we're never tired, and we just have all this love to give. Thank you for realizing that maybe your child's teacher is tired, and maybe they need a little picker-upper. One time I had a parent send me a card, and it was just a simple card that says, thank you, I appreciate what you're doing. I know it's not easy all the time. I know I don't have the easiest child to work with, but thank you for doing what you're doing, and keep it up. Those words, that card, even though it wasn't something I can eat, something I can wear, something I can drink, it was words that I read. It was words that just empowered me, and I go, yes, somebody recognizes what I'm doing. So if there's any parents who are tuning in tonight, please recognize that sometimes the teachers, we need a little praise sticker. We need a gold star. We need a little bit of enthusiasm and support from you. And even just coming in, you know, in the morning, or sending us a card, or sending us a quick email, or notes in your child's communication book saying, hey, hope you had a great week. Thanks for all that you do. Thank you goes a very long way.
That's great. Thanks, Jamila. And I want to thank you for your participation tonight and all that you bring to us. It's always so great to listen to you and feel rejuvenated at the end of hearing everything you have to share.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you.
And now I'm going to announce the winner of the gift card for tonight. Amanda Melanson. If you would like to email Scholar's Choice at socialmedia@scholarschoice.ca, we will arrange for you to get your gift card.
Congratulations, Amanda.
I'm just waiting to see if anybody has any last-minute questions. Lots of people thanking you, Jamila, and telling you that it was really helpful.
I'm glad. And like I said, remember, you know, give yourself words of encouragement. Have a sticky pad. Give yourself little praise words. Give yourself praise pieces. It's not only the students who need praise pieces, we need praise pieces too. And if you're noticing that your colleague is feeling a little burnt out, a hug, praise, it goes a long way. So I really hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your week. And I thank you for guys for tuning in. And I really hope that together we could, you know, decrease burnout and help people feel happy and whole again.
That's great, Jamila. Thanks so much. And just so everybody knows, we will have a copy of this webinar up on our blog within the next few days, and you will also be able to get the PowerPoint there as well.
Yes.
Perfect. Good night.
Okay, good night, everybody.